everybody, welcome to Superhuman Creative. I'm your host, Stephen Human, and on this channel we just customize action figures and we do crazy stuff, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but we have a lot of fun experimenting. And what we're gonna do today is, I love Green Lanterns. I've got the great Green Lantern shelf over here, and I had an extra John Stewart body, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I had thought about maybe making a Tomar Ray, but instead I had this 10-inch Thor head as an extra, and we're gonna turn this guy into Galius Zed. Now he is that Green Lantern who's basically just a head. He's been shown in a couple different ways. Sometimes he's just a round ball with arms coming out of it. Other times he's got like a big head with arms, you know. Well, this one I figured we'd do milliput, and we'd add it so that it comes down and fills in all of this, so his head is coming completely out of the top of his body. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to give a really cool Green Lantern to the shelf. So I'm very excited. Let's get going. First things first for Galius Zox is milliput. So you want to make sure the head's sort of centered, and I want to get it thin and put it up around his head. And I'm going to have it come down. I want there to be a border, so I'm going to have it come down to right here where you can see there's a little like hole, or like a texture right here. If I can have it come down there and touch there, then it will look much more natural. And so that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to take the milliput, I'm going to get in little pieces, whoops, and I'm just going to mold it into place so that he's got the coverage. And then we'll go through and we'll start adding some personality to it. So I've been tapping it to smooth it out as best I can, and I've gotten it pretty smooth. And then what we're going to do is, I want to match some of the lines in here from the body. And so I'm just going to kind of go like this in places and add lines that will create textures that match the rest of the body. And it will make it look, especially once it's painted, hopefully a little bit less like hand done, because the lines will all be straight. So that's a good way to kind of hide the fact that some of these things are hand done, is if you can use stuff like this and make the lines very straight. It will give it more of a machine look. And then I'll put the Green Lantern symbol right here, because he usually has a Green Lantern symbol on his forehead. And we'll move on to the next stage. In order to get the symbol a little bit more perfect, I'm actually pressing his head into the symbol on this guy, on the Simon Baz, so that he will actually have a nice Green Lantern symbol on his head. All right, he's all dry, and so what we're going to do now is I'm going to pick a dark green, the darkest green that I got, and we're going to go through and get this guy started on the paint. So I'm going to go through very carefully here on the edges. And remember, you always lead with the paint as best you can. It's hard for me to do it on this side because I want you guys to really be able to see, but doing it this way is tough because I can't see quite as well from where I'm sitting. So I'm going to go on this side first and get this across. And then I'm just going to go for coverage. Now you start obviously with the dark green, and it matches the original green that was under here, because we've done this before with other Green Lanterns, and it does in fact match pretty closely. Not exact, but we're going to go over with the metallic green anyway. And that's going to then make it match, and then we'll go over with the shade. And then this guy will be pretty much done. I mean, this isn't a difficult thing at this point. I've just got to make sure to get the edges, make sure that the greens are looking good, and that I get in the little cracks that I did. And he's going to look pretty cool. I mean, obviously, if he was 100% comic book accurate, then he would just be a head. He'd be, you know, like MODOK from the Marvel Universe, where he's basically just a giant head with legs and feet coming out of the sides. But I think this looks pretty cool, mainly because he's going to look cool on the shelf. He's just going to look different. And whether you're like, oh, he's not close enough to be comic accurate or whatever, that's fine. That is 100% fair. But for me, I like having things on the shelf that just stand out and look cool. And I think this guy's going to fit that bill as my version of Galius Zed. the most important part in here is you want to make sure, like what I did when I added these grooves and stuff, is to make sure that this dark paint really gets in there and covers everything. Because when we go through with the metallics, we really hope that those stay dark so that it gives the contrast, right? So make sure that you get all in there. And like I had this kind of hole in the back that I thought would look kind of cool. So just make sure that you get in all there so that when you do the dry brushing of the metallic, those will still really pop. Like you can see back here, that's how it worked. These are still dark and they just add a really nice contrast. It's subtle, but it looks great, especially when they're in the light on the shelf. And sometimes you're gonna get a little bit of slop because you gotta get these edges, and these are such small areas that sometimes you get a little behind, but take a, right, it's wait for it to dry, but not to be fully dry. And it comes right off really easily with a little X-Acto knife. And it doesn't do anything. Because once it's fully dry, if you let it, cure over the next hour, then it's gonna cause some problems because it's not gonna wanna come off. But if you let it dry for a few minutes and make it so that it's not coming off on your fingers, then it just comes right off. Just that simple. And there we go, he's all fixed. And here we go into the metallics. From here on out, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. You just get the metallic on there, spread it around. You can see I had some of the plastic armor on here, so I'm going to, and it peeled up a little bit of the paint because it was on there for a while. So I'm just gonna take this and go over the top of it. And of course, this will be covered up by the shade. So I can do this here and do some touch up of where the plastic armor was on this guy for a very long time in the sun. And I can fix it now and get it so that once the shade goes on, all will look as it should. So yeah, just go through, pretty straightforward. Start getting this guy metallic. Before I do the green shade to make everything match, I'm gonna paint this white right now. The reason for it is that just in case I get any slop on the edges, I can clean that up before I do the shade. So I'm just gonna go through here. I actually grabbed the wrong paintbrush, but that's okay. And I'm just gonna get it so that it's white, and then we move on to the shade. Here we go with the shade. And you just need to get a little bit on here and just move it around. And remember, I repainted a lot of this stuff, so I'm gonna go over it again. But this is what brings this green to life. And it's what's gonna bring this figure to life, because it is such a beautiful thing that goes over the top of the green and makes it brighter, but allows the metallic to shine through. It's the same sort of deal that I get when I use my Model Air Red, which is an airbrush red, over metallic red. Because as you guys have seen many times before, the metallic red is blotchy. It does not look good. It's blotchy and it doesn't have good coverage. But once you've got it on and it's dried, you put that Model Air over, which is basically just like this. It's just a shade. And suddenly that metallic red absolutely explodes. So I highly recommend doing this whenever you're dealing with colored metallics, is to get a matching shade that you like. And this shade is just called Scorpion Green. It's a Vallejo. And it will get you exactly what you want. And the last thing we need to do is I'm going to take some fabric paint to put the symbol up here. Now it's hard to get a perfect symbol, so I usually do the dot in the middle and then just 2 lines, because it looks cool enough on the shelf and it catches the black lights and it does a pretty good job. So obviously none of this is machine made, it's all handmade. So you've got to pick your battles and do your best to make things so that they look cool. And for me, this works. If I wanted to 3D print something that was perfect, then I could. I don't have a 3D printer. That doesn't appeal to me. I like the handmade look, and that's what I go for. But you guys get to choose what you enjoy in this arena and do what's gonna make you excited. And if that's 3D printing a symbol and putting it up there, then do that. But for me, I like to do it simple. I love the fact that this will glow and it will look really cool, and that is enough for me. And there we have Galius Zed. This will be a really fun addition to the shelf. Now, obviously, If I'd wanted him to be comic book accurate, he would have just been one head with some arms poking out. I don't really care for that look. This is a fun one for me, and I had a really good time doing it. And like I said, most important to me is that he's going to end up looking really good on the shelf with the other Green Lanterns. It's going to be something that's different, something that catches the eye, but that also blends in with the overall aesthetic of the shelf. So thank you guys for watching so much. I appreciate all of your guys' comments and your tips. Get customizing yourself, have some fun, and I'll see you guys soon.